An aircraft that was going to be able to go basically get behind enemy lines.
What happens when history is unearthed from the ice? Well, you get a jaw-dropping discovery that raises more questions than answers.
One aircraft has come to represent in a deadly, relentless aerial battle.
From the unexpected find of the aircraft known as Glacier Girl, which was missing for 50 years, to the remains of the B-24D Liberator bomber, discovered still intact even after a major crash. Join me in today's video as we uncover the incredible story of World War II planes and their cargo recovered from the ice. 1. Glacier Girl. Back in the heat of World War II, July 1942 to be exact, a group of bold pilots found themselves in a chilly predicament. They were part of the Lost Squadron, consisting of 6 sleek P-38 Lightning fighter planes and 2 sturdy B-17 Flying Fortress bombers, all set for a mission from the United States to Europe under Operation Bolero. But fate had other plans, steering them right into a snowstorm over Greenland. As the weather threw its worst at them, fuel gauges started to hit worryingly low levels, and the squad had no choice but to make an unexpected pit stop right on the vast, icy Greenland cap. Luckily, all crew members made it out safe and sound and were rescued a few days later. However, their aircraft weren't so lucky, eventually getting buried under a thick blanket of ice and snow. Fast forward about 40 years to 1981, and there's still buzz about these frosty flyers. The Greenland Expedition Society, co-founded by aviation enthusiasts Pat Epps and Richard Taylor, took on the Herculean task of finding these icy relics. It wasn't until 1988 that they hit the jackpot, locating one of the P-38s, now affectionately known as Glacier Girl. Recovering her was no small feat. A team meticulously melted their way down through 268 feet. That's about 82 meters of ice using a heated contraption called the Super Gopher. This device wasn't just fancy, it was a game changer, creating a 4-foot-wide shaft straight down to the buried treasure. Brave souls were lowered down this frosty elevator to carefully dismantle the plane piece by piece. On August 1st, 1992, Glacier Girl finally saw the light of day again. But the adventure didn't end there. She was whisked away to Middlesboro, Kentucky, where a team led by restoration wizard Bob Carden took on the decade-long challenge of getting her back to her former glory. They scoured for original parts and pieced her back together with an almost archaeological precision. And boy, did it pay off. On October 26, 2002, Glacier Girl took to the skies once more, proving that with enough determination and ingenuity, even planes lost for half a century can fly again. Now, doesn't that make you wonder what other forgotten pieces of history are waiting under the ice, just hoping to be rediscovered? 2. Another P-38 from the Lost Squadron called Ekko was discovered in 2018. You'd think uncovering a piece of history buried under layers of ice for decades would be straightforward. But oh, how surprises lurk beneath the surface. Back in July 2018, an intrepid team from Arctic Hot Point Solutions, helmed by the daring duo Jim Salazar and Ken McBride, struck gold, or should I say, aluminum and steel. Deep within Greenland's icy expanse, they unearthed Ekko, a legendary P-38 Lightning fighter plane, part of the renowned Lost Squadron. These were not just any old planes. They were part of a fleet of 6 P-38s and 2 B-17 bombers that crash-landed on Greenland's ice cap back in July 1942 during World War II. Thankfully, the crews made it out alive, but the planes were left to an icy fate, slowly swallowed by the creeping glacier. The saga to retrieve Ekko began in 2011, sparked by an anomaly detected on the ground-penetrating radar. Fast forward to 2018, and the team was back with gadgets galore, drones outfitted with the latest radar systems, scanning the depths below. These high-tech toys did their job well, pointing out something substantial under the ice. The big confirmation came with the heat probe, which, once pulled up, was smeared with red hydraulic fluid, the type that's been coursing through the veins of aircraft since who knows when. And who was the brave soul that once piloted this icy ghost? None other than Lieutenant Robert H. Wilson. The news of the discovery was a significant moment for his son, Brian Wilson, tying a poignant personal ribbon on this historical package. Now, retrieving Ekko is no small task. The team plans to melt a vertical tunnel right down to the aircraft using gigantic heated plates. Once they hit pay dirt, they'll carve out a cavern big enough to dismantle the plane and lift it, piece by historic piece. It's a delicate dance of preservation and patience, aiming to restore Ekko to its former glory. You can't help but admire the tenacity it takes to bring such treasures back to light, right? But here's another thought. What about the secret still hidden beneath Greenland's vast icy cloak? What stories might they tell? Perhaps those tales are waiting for their turn in the spotlight in our next adventure. 3. Wreckage of a W-2 plane that crashed 70 years ago is found in the Sahara Desert. You know you've stumbled upon something special when you find a piece of history just sitting in the desert, untouched for decades. That's exactly what happened in 2012 when a Polish oil worker named Jakub Perka was exploring the vast Egyptian Sahara, a whopping 200 miles from civilization. There, baking under the sun, was a World War II fighter plane, the Curtiss P-40 Kitty Hawk, as pristine as the day it was grounded 70 years earlier. The pilot of this ghostly aircraft was a 24-year-old British flight sergeant named Dennis Copping. Back in 1942, Copping ran into trouble mid-flight, but managed to masterfully land the plane on the sandy expanse. The scene at the crash site was like something out of a survival thriller. A parachute draped over the aircraft for shelter hinted that Copping survived the initial mishap. It seems he even tried to get the radio working after yanking out the batteries, maybe hoping for a rescue that never came. Military historian Andy Saunders believes the young pilot eventually tried to walk out of the desert, a venture that likely proved fatal in such brutal conditions. Saunders somberly noted, "It is too hideous to contemplate." Labeled as the aviation equivalent of Tutankhamun's tomb, this discovery sent waves of excitement through the aviation community. Enthusiasts were buzzing with theories. Some speculated that the plane suffered a mechanical failure. Others thought it might have simply run out of fuel, or that Copping got lost, common enough in the vast, featureless landscape. Curiosity also peaked around the plane's serial number, ET-574, with hints that it might have once been piloted by the renowned Canadian flying ace James "Stocky" Edwards. Imagine finding that cockpit, dusty yet incredibly intact, as if waiting for its next flight. As thrilled as the historians and enthusiasts were, there was a cloud of worry about potential vandalism to this historical artifact, described as a travesty by the folks at Vintage Wings of Canada. Meanwhile, Michael Crean from the Royal Air Force Museum in London called the find incredible, considering how the shifting sands of time could have buried it forever. The museum is keen on retrieving the plane to preserve this slice of history, though they face logistical and bureaucratic challenges. Now, what if I told you a similar story has surfaced, but involving another World War II relic? Does the RAF Lancaster bomber, RA-508, sound familiar to you? 4. RAF Lancaster bomber, RA-508. On a chilly March day in 1945, during World War II, a brave crew aboard the Avro Lancaster bomber, RA-508, known as ZNB, left RAF Metheringham in Lincolnshire for a mission over Dortmund, Germany. Led by Pilot Officer Frank Ernest Baker, these 7 souls never made it back, presumed to have vanished over the sometimes merciless North Sea. Fast forward several decades, and cue the entry of Friedhelm Brack, a diligent local historian from Radevormwald near Dusseldorf. In an unexpected turn, Brack stumbled upon partially burnt Royal Air Force maps at a local crash site. These weren't just any maps. They charted a flight path from the UK to Dortmund and were nestled among the wreckage of a 4-engine plane that met its fate on that very same day as RA-508's ill-fated mission. The plot thickens when Cologne-based researcher Manfred Weichert enters the scene. After poring over these maps and meshing together eyewitness tales, Weichert pinpointed the crash site to a meadow in Ulfa II, a quiet district of Raid. The aircraft, he proposed, was likely struck by flak at the height of Cologne-Schau-Dusseldorf, deviated from its path while ablaze, and descended tragically into history. Eyewitnesses from those days recalled the harrowing sight of a 4-engine plane spiraling down in flames, a sight that matches the Lancaster's distinctive profile. Adding a layer of intrigue, one map bore handwritten notes, potentially the work of the navigator, Flight Sergeant Herbert George Harding. Weichert hopes to match this script with Harding's family samples to finally piece together the puzzle of RA-508. Today, the crash site's transformation into an industrial estate marks a somber footnote in history. Yet, it offers a thread of closure to the families of the airmen, providing them with a tangible connection to the final chapter of their loved one's wartime journey. With this revelation, we're reminded of the ever-evolving nature of historical narratives. That being said, it still doesn't beat this next case. What if I told you about another mysterious aircraft disappearance, this one even closer to solving, yet still shrouded in secrets? 5. Lady Be Good, B-24 bomber. The crew of the B-24D Liberator bomber, named Lady Be Good, their first combat sortie on April 4, 1943, turned into an enduring mystery. Deployed from Salik Field near Benghazi, Libya, the crew aimed their sights on Naples, Italy. However, destiny had a different plan. They lost their bearings on the return flight when faced with navigational troubles and tricky weather conditions. Thinking they were hovering over the Mediterranean Sea, the crew made a bold decision to bail out. The plane, left to its own devices, continued on a ghostly flight until it crash-landed in the remote Libyan desert. Meanwhile, the crew parachuted into an unforgiving landscape, and sadly, all 9 members succumbed while desperately trying to locate civilization. The whereabouts of Lady Be Good remained cloaked in mystery until a twist of fate in November 1958, when a British oil exploration team from Darcy Oil Company stumbled upon the wreckage. Found deep in the Libyan desert, about 440 miles southeast of Saluh, the aircraft was in surprisingly good condition, thanks to the dry desert air. Even more astonishing, some of the plane's equipment was still functional, and there were personal items found intact, including a thermos with drinkable coffee. In February 1960, a U.S. Army team ventured into the desert and unearthed more of this poignant tale. They located the remains of 5 crew members about 80 miles north of the wreckage, revealing the grueling journey they had undertaken in search of help. Further efforts uncovered more remains, with the last crew member found an additional 27 miles away, painting a stark picture of their desperate final days. The discovery of Lady Be Good and its crew not only solved a wartime puzzle, but also served as a somber reminder of the challenges and sacrifices faced by air crews in combat. Artifacts from the crash have been preserved, and memorials erected to honor the bravery and endurance of these men. That being said, have you ever heard of the Acatan Zero? 6. The Acatan Zero. On June 4, 1942, the Japanese Imperial Navy threw a curveball at the Aleutian Islands, Alaska, launching an attack that brought more than firepower. Among the fleet was a Mitsubishi A6M2 Zero fighter, helmed by the youthful aviator Petty Officer First Class Tadayoshi Koga, just 19 years old. As his aircraft swooped into the fray, it took a hit that ruptured an oil line, leaving a trail of oil in the sky. With his aircraft bleeding oil and unable to make it back to his carrier, Ryujo, Koga had no choice but to eye Acatan Island, about 25 miles northeast of Dutch Harbor, for an emergency landing. But the island wasn't the flat sanctuary he hoped for. It was a deceptive marshland. As the wheels of his Zero touched down, the soft ground grabbed hold, flipping the plane and sealing Koga's fate with a tragic and instant end. For over a month, the Zero lay hidden. Its pilot's mission ended in an unexpected grave. Then, on July 10, 1942, chance took a swing in favor of the U.S. Navy. A routine patrol by Lieutenant William Thies and his PBY Catalina crew spotted the overturned Zero. Realizing the jackpot they had stumbled upon, Thies marked the spot and hustled back to Dutch Harbor to sound the alert. The very next day, a recovery team led by Lieutenant Robert Kermsey ventured to the scene. There, they found Koga's aircraft mostly intact, an unexpected trove of intelligence ripe for the taking, with minimal damage from the skirmish. Koga was still at the controls, his mission etched into history. The team documented everything, then laid Koga to rest with the dignity owed to a fallen enemy, marking his grave with a cross inscribed, "Japanese flyer killed in action." The prize was soon lifted from the marsh and sent on a covert journey to Naval Air Station North Island near San Diego. After a meticulous makeover, including fixing up the propeller and swapping the Hinamaru for an American insignia, the Zero was ready to fly again by September 20, 1942. Under the keen eye of Lieutenant Commander Eddie R. Sanders, the aircraft took to the skies, revealing secrets of its prowess to the eager minds of Allied forces. This knowledge helped devise new tactics, like the Thatch Weave, turning the tide in aerial combat. So, with this tale of luck, strategy, and a bit of marshland misfortune, what could possibly top this in terms of unexpected military twists? 7. Operation Lusty Aircraft. In the twilight years of World War II, the U.S. Army Air Forces kicked off a rather secretive project, cleverly named Operation Lusty, short for Luftwaffe Secret Technology. This mission? To snag and scrutinize some of the most advanced German aircraft and aeronautical innovations out there. Leading the charge were two primary teams: Colonel Harold E. Watson's crew, dubbed Watson's Wizards, who were on a scavenger hunt for enemy planes and weaponry to ship back stateside for a closer look, and Colonel Howard M. McCoy's squad, tasked with the brainy job of recruiting scientists, scooping up documents, and poking around research facilities. By 1944, the brainiacs over at Wright Field had their wish lists ready, topped by the sleek Messerschmitt Me 262 jet fighter. But, as you might imagine, snagging these technological treasures was no walk in the park. Watson's Wizards had to maneuver through war-ravaged landscapes, dodge potential booby traps, and hurdle over language barriers. Despite these hurdles, they hit the jackpot at Lechfeld Airfield, the proud home of the Me-262s, where the 54th Air Disarmament Squadron was among the first to arrive. Typically tasked with dismantling German armaments, this squadron found themselves in an odd twist of fate, preserving and collecting the very items they usually destroyed. It was a meticulous job. They had to comb each aircraft for explosives and prep them for a safe journey across the Atlantic. The team wasn't alone, though. They had help from a couple of ace German test pilots, Ludwig Hoffmann and Karl Bauer. Hoffmann, known for his fearless flying, and a pre-war nod from Charles A. Lindbergh, alongside Bauer, the chief Messerschmitt test pilot, became crucial in schooling the Americans on these foreign jets. Once they secured the planes, the next leg of their mission was to fly them to Cherbourg, France, prepped and primed for the voyage to the U.S. This part was dicey. Piloting jet aircraft was uncharted territory for many of the pilots. Moreover, the aircraft had to be inspected thoroughly, as some came booby-trapped with explosives right in the cockpit. Despite the odds, Operation Lusty was a soaring success, bringing back not only the Me-262s, but also Arado R-234 jet bombers and Heinkel He-219 night fighters for a thorough stateside evaluation. After hearing about this high-flying caper from the past, how does this next case sound like? 8. Flight 19's PBM Mariner. Back on December 5, 1945, a group of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, collectively known as Flight 19, vanished over the Atlantic during what was supposed to be a routine navigation drill. To make matters worse, the rescue mission didn't exactly go as planned either. The U.S. Navy quickly launched a search and rescue operation, sending out 2 Martin PBM-5 Mariner flying boats from Naval Air Station Banana River, these days called Patrick Space Force Base. One of these, with bureau number 59225 emblazoned on its side, took off into the evening sky at 7:27 p.m., carrying a 13-member crew. Things seemed normal, as it sent out a routine radio message 20 minutes later. But that was the last anyone heard from it. By 9:15 p.m., the scene took a dramatic turn when the tanker SS Gaines Mills spotted a fireball erupting high above the ocean, followed by a sinister trail of flames and an ominous oil slick marking, where the Mariner had likely met its fiery end. Despite an exhaustive search, no trace of debris or survivors ever surfaced, suggesting a catastrophic mid-air explosion had occurred. These Mariners were quite the workhorses, known for their extended range and frequently used in rescue missions. However, they came with a risky downside. They were notoriously prone to fuel leaks and had earned the unsettling nickname of flying gas tanks. This made them particularly vulnerable to fires, especially on prolonged flights. The disappearance of Flight 19, along with the Mariner, deepened the aura of mystery surrounding the Bermuda Triangle, that notorious stretch in the Atlantic that seems to swallow planes and ships whole. To this day, the fate of these missions fuels speculation and debate, keeping the Bermuda Triangle firmly on the map of modern mysteries. So, with tales of disappearances and unexplained phenomena, the Bermuda Triangle keeps us guessing. 9. RAF Beaufort Bomber, A9-2117. You never know what history will dredge up next, do you? Let's take a trip back to the throes of World War II. On November 15, 1943, a crew of brave souls from the Royal Australian Air Force, RAAF, launched a daring mission. Their target? Japanese ships lurking near Simpson Harbor, off Rabaul, Papua New Guinea. The aircraft leading this audacious charge was the Beaufort bomber A9-217, piloted by Flight Sergeant Jack Carroll Woodgate. Alongside him were 12 other Beauforts taking off from Vivagani Airfield on Goodenough Island. The mission was a hit, but not all the birds made it back to the nest. Fast forward to March 2001, when the long-lost Beaufort bomber A9-217 was finally unearthed, submerged near Kawa Island. The aircraft rested quietly on a pristine white sandy seabed, about 20 meters deep. A RAF searcher team, pushing through the sands of time, managed to uncover the remains of the four-man crew. Inside the downed bomber were Flight Sergeant Jack Carroll Woodgate, Sergeant Stewart Ian Drakes, Flight Sergeant Jeffrey Stewart Wells, and Flight Sergeant Byron Vitch McLean. Each was identified with a mix of solemn reverence and cutting-edge forensic science, including identity tags and dental records. The catalyst for this profound discovery? Rod Pierce, an Australian with a penchant for piecing together wartime puzzles. Pierce, having previously located other wartime wrecks, played an invaluable role in bringing closure to a decades-old mystery. His tireless efforts underscore a saga of remembrance and resolution. On the very day marking 72 years since their disappearance, November 15, 2015, the crew was honored with a full military funeral. The ceremony was not just a farewell, but a long overdue welcome home, offering peace at last to their waiting families. As we reflect on this remarkable journey from loss to discovery, one can't help but ponder what other secrets lie hidden beneath the waves, awaiting their turn to tell another tale. How does the story of the Junker Ju 88, which vanished without a trace in 1918, sound for our next deep dive? 10. Junker Ju 88. The things you find when you dig a little into history, especially when it involves the daredevil exploits and unintended legacies of wartime aircraft, like the German Luftwaffe's Junkers Ju 88. This twin-engine beast wasn't just any plane. It was a jack of all trades, serving from bombing runs to reconnaissance missions during World War II. Take, for instance, the chilly night of April 7-8, 1941, when a Ju 88A5 with the serial Verke number 8138 met its fate over the marshlands near the English coast. It wasn't just a crash, it was a dramatic shoot-down by a British Defiant night fighter, piloted by the brave Flight Lieutenant West and his gunner, Sergeant R.T. Adams. After an intense aerial tussle, the Ju-88 burst into flames and crashed, casting a vivid red flash across the marshes. The aftermath was a muddy mess, with wreckage buried deep, between 1.8 to 5.4 meters under, to be exact. The salvaged relics from this crash later found a new home at Hangar 42 in Blackpool, turning them into pieces of history for everyone to see. Fast forward to February 2012, and we dive under the waters of the Thames estuary, where divers stumbled upon another Ju 88 wreck. Among the remnants were a BMW 801 engine and parts of a large format camera, hinting that this might have been a rare prototype T-series designed for high-speed reconnaissance missions. Imagine the stories that engine could tell if it could talk. Then there's the late discovery on John Mayen Island in the 1950s. This remote piece of rock became the final resting place for at least 2 German bombers lost to the foggy abyss during the war. The wreck lay forgotten until it was rediscovered, still mostly intact, with its wartime secrets scattered around the harsh, cold landscape. And who could forget the summer of 2021? That's when the Air Crash PO team, led by the likes of Luca Merli and Michel Marie, trekked up the slopes of Monte Amiata in Italy. Their mission? To find one of the lost Ju 88s. Their dedication to uncovering these aerial time capsules shows just how much history is still out there, waiting to be rediscovered. That's it for today's video, folks. So, what do you think? What was the most surprising part of this incredible discovery? And what do you think the mystery cargo might be? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating stories and discoveries like this one.